Welcome to the Relevance Report, where we explore the relevant stories that are shaping our world today. I'm Kelsey Howlett, your host this week. On today's show, award season has just wrapped up for the year. So, who are the big winners?
And the Grammy goes to...
And the Oscar goes to...
And the Grammy goes to...
And the Oscar goes to...
As selected by the 13,000 voting members of the Recording Academy, the Grammy goes to...
And the Oscar goes to...
And after, how is artificial intelligence being used in TV and film? To talk more about this today, I'm joined in studio by Brooke Mayer and Izzy Crozier. Izzy is an award show enthusiast, and while Brooke may not have watched any award shows this season, she knows a thing or two about the entertainment industry. So, I guess we'll start with you, Brooke. Do you follow the awards shows like the Oscars or the Grammys?
Honestly, this year I didn't watch any of the award shows. I normally don't, actually. I used to watch them quite often. If you want to talk about the NFL awards or any sporting award shows, then yeah, we could talk about that. But I have no knowledge of the entertainment awards shows, only maybe one or two things. So for me, the reason I don't really follow along with them anymore is because I used to watch them in hopes that my favorite films of the year would win any kind of award. However, year after year, my favorite films got snubbed, never won anything. So you know what? I just gave up on watching them. Frustration kind of set in when I saw different artists and different films that were winning awards, and I had never heard of these films or songs, albums, and whatnot. When I watched the Oscars, or when I used to watch the Oscars, I often found that the awards that were given to these films and actors, actresses were films that I had never even heard of. And I think that's kind of set in for a lot of people, where they just find disappointment that they had never even heard of these films and they're winning all these big awards. An example I think of with music awards is Cowboy Carter winning Best Country Album and Album of the Year. That doesn't really make sense to me because, first of all, that snubbed a lot of other country artists. And, I mean, honestly, I hated Cowboy Carter. I don't know about you guys, but that's just my take. And I saw a lot of people have the same opinion. As well, Taylor Swift went over 6 on Grammy Awards for the first time ever. And I think that really speaks to the lack of voices that fans of artists have. I think it's important to have the opinion of the audience incorporated into these Academy shows, but you don't really see that, and I think that speaks to the lack of popularity that these award shows are having these days.
And Izzy, you're an award show enthusiast. What are your thoughts on them?
The award shows, I agree, they do tend to drag out. I usually watch the big award section, best film, best actor, actress, and then catch up on the smaller awards with recap commentary videos. I follow all of the different nominations across the boards. Like once they've released the nominations, I usually try to check out one or two of the films, but this year was one of the years where I hadn't heard of any film except for one that was nominated for any of the awards. So that was kind of just something that caught me off guard, was these films that had never had like a trailer release, nothing, just showing up at the Oscars.
So I want to go back to Cowboy Carter. Brooke, you mentioned that there may be some biases when it comes to nominations and how the winners are chosen.
Yeah, I mean, let's be honest. It seems like Beyonce is always winning some kind of award over other artists and albums that are more deserving. I always go back. This was a time when she didn't win an award over another artist, but I always go back to the time where Taylor Swift won, I can't remember which award it was, but everybody knows this debacle. Kanye comes on stage, says Beyonce had the best album of the year, she should have won it. And I always go back to that. Why does Beyonce win every single year for songs that I either don't care for or have never even heard of? I mean, if I'm being honest, the last time I liked Beyonce was when she was with Destiny's Child. Like, those are the songs that I listen to with Beyonce. Cowboy Carter should not have won. Like, so many different country artists were more deserving of that award, and so many different artists were deserving of Album of the Year, and I just don't think it's right. And then moving from music to into films, in regards to movies, film critics are the ones who determine what films win what awards. These popular movies that people love, that warm people's hearts, they rarely win because awards aren't determined by fans and popularity, they're determined by the Academy. And I think when these Academy members are voting and figuring out what films win, they usually go for name recognition, or people are looking at these different techniques that film creators use, directors use, and I think these Academy members need to more so look at the impact that these films and that these songs, artists have on the audience members and on people as a whole, how they affect the average Joe. Biases towards these more high-profile films and music that get a larger campaign typically win more awards. I don't think that's right. So there's definitely a wide array of biases in these award shows that needs to kind of go away, or else award shows are probably going to not cease to exist, but really, really continue to decrease in their popularity.
So, Izzy, you know a lot about the award show process and about how nomination works. Would you be able to explain to our listeners a little bit more about how that works?
Absolutely. So when the awards show season starts to roll around, usually around the end of the calendar year, so anything that was created from the start of 2024 till the end of 2024, so that whole calendar year, is up for any of the award shows that happen in the beginning part of 2025. So the PR teams for each of these projects, whether it's an album, a song, film, television, they start to run a campaign for their show, their work. Then the PR team delegates where each person is going to fall in category-wise. So you can put someone who you know would win supporting actress over, any of the other supporting actresses of the year. Even if they were the main actress in the film, you delegate where they go and where they fall in their nomination so that you have the best chance of winning that award. Then the voting body, so the Academy for the Oscars votes for the Oscars, the Recording Academy votes for the Grammys. They cast their votes, which basically they have their own personal biases, right? Everyone's going to have bias. They tend to, like Brooke said, lean towards those bigger name people, the bigger name like directors, actors, things like that. They will lead where they so choose, and it's honestly just like any other election vote type of thing where it just is going to fall where things fall.
You said that they tend to lean towards these bigger name actors, actresses, directors, all of that. Have you seen any of like the big winners from this year's season?
So I have only personally seen Wicked, which only has won like a fraction of the nominations that it was made for. One that I would have personally liked to see was Cynthia Erivo win Best Leading Actress for her role in Wicked, as that was one of the by far most emotionally captivating things I've seen all year. And I hadn't heard of any of the other nominations, really. So to have them like come out of the woods like so strong, sweeping with multiple wins in the big categories, caught me off guard as someone who is very into film and television. And for those to just like come out of nowhere, I was a little shocked. And as for the Grammys, with Cowboy Carter, I heard one song off that whole album, and it was the worst song I had heard in 2024, and I listened to a lot of bad music.
What about you, Brooke? Did you know any of the big winners or nominations this year?
Not really. In regards to the Oscars, I really only know Wicked, but I actually haven't even seen Wicked. I only know it because, well, they had a really good marketing campaign, and they did a really good job with that. I've been meaning to watch that film. I just haven't had the chance. But the other films I really hadn't even heard of, again, until the Oscars. I saw Anora on Amazon Prime last night, so I'll probably watch that this week. But I'm only watching it because it had won an Oscar, and that's the only reason I actually had heard of it. So I rarely hear about films that I even know about. So these award shows are kind of irrelevant to my life.
So based on that, how do you think the nomination or the voting process should be done?
Well, I do think, like, as Izzy mentioned, the voting body casts their votes, and this is where kind of bias comes in. I think there should be a bigger inclusion of audience members and fans of these films, of these artists, of these albums, songs, etc. I think by doing that, you're making these shows become more relevant again. I mean, if you think about it, fans are what make films and music popular. Without fans, these award shows would lack importance and popularity. They're already losing popularity because of this. When you go to a movie theater, an example I think of is Spider-Man No Way Home. When I went to go see that movie a few years ago, I literally was so excited. I deleted all my I went on opening day and I bought tickets, I think, a month before because I was so excited for this film. So I went into the theater, and when Andrew Garfield and Tobey Maguire showed up on my screen, on the theater screen, I guess, people went crazy. People were clapping and screaming, and I had never experienced that in a movie theater before. And I think that's the true magic, that's the true beauty of films that's not incorporated into the Oscars. I mean, fans are what make films special. And I think without that, these award shows they're irrelevant. They need to incorporate some more fan-based opinion. I don't know how they would do it. I'm not an expert, but there's certainly some way they could figure it out.
I think we know your thoughts on whether or not these shows are relevant or not, but just based on our conversation and how all of these films that nobody's really heard of are winning these big awards. Izzy, what are your thoughts? Do you find that these shows are still relevant?
For my personal enjoyment, I actually really do enjoy watching the long form award shows. It depends on the host, though. So certain years I will skip certain ones depending on the host, or I'll start watching it, and if the host really just, flops, I'm out. So Golden Globes 2024, Joe Coy was the host, and he made a very sexist comment about how Barbie shouldn't have been as big as it was compared to Oppenheimer, because Barbie is just a plastic doll with big boobies, which I just didn't think was valid or necessarily needed to be said. So I stopped watching. And honestly, if you can get a good host, you can keep the viewership watching. Taking in what Brooke said about the voting process, I think these award shows can become relevant again.
It's no secret that AI is becoming prevalent in the entertainment industry, and questions surrounding its uses came up during this year's awards when Adrien Brody won the Oscar for Best Actor, even though his accent was AI generated. I'm joined by Brooke to talk more on this. So Brooke, do you think an actor who has had their performance enhanced by AI be eligible for an award?
Well, I do think it kind of depends on the role. If the actor only slightly relies on AI, like you just asked, if they only use it to kind of enhance their accent or their role in some way, then I think it's acceptable because AI is going to be a huge part of the industry, and I think we have to learn to accept that. Although I do kind of think like if an actor or actress really heavily relies on AI, then the actor shouldn't be eligible because, I mean, where's the talent? For so many years, actors have learned to develop these dialects, these different accents, and they're so talented. But now these days I find that actors are getting less and less talented, if that makes sense. And it seems to be that anybody can act now. You have all these content creators and influencers who are acting. And now with AI, it makes it so easy for anybody to act, for anybody to have a different accent, for anybody to even speak a different language. I mean, we could use AI on me right now and make me talk in Spanish. Like, that's not the goal of this. I think it just depends. If it enhances the accent or the role, then okay, that's all right. But if it's really heavily relied on, I don't think the actor should be eligible.
So kind of going more off of that, how do you think this is going to impact the next generation of actors?
I think, as I kind of just mentioned, I think actors are going to be less talented as the years go on because AI is going to be more heavily relied upon as the years go on and on and on. I mean, I can see in probably less than 30 years, less than 30 years, I think we might even use robots to be acting. I think AI is just kind of taking over things, and I think you see now Noah Beck is acting, Addison Rae is acting, all these TikTokers are becoming actors, and the talent pool is just getting less and less, and I think AI is a big part of that.
Do you think, knowing that these actors and all of them use AI to kind of enhance performances. Do you think it's going to affect the way you watch movies?
I think so. I think now, after this year's Oscars, I think it kind of changes the way that I look at movies. And now when I'm watching new movies, it's always going to be in the back of my mind where I'm wondering, is there AI involved in this film? Is AI enhancing this film? Now it's always going to be that little voice in my head wondering what AI did to enhance this.
Yeah, which I mean makes sense because, AI is being used in so many different ways. Like you have Adrian Brody, who used AI to enhance his accent for his film role that ultimately led him to winning an award. I mean, it's also being used to vet scripts and help locate casting places and filming locations, as well as any sort of visual effects in post-production. Based on all of these different uses of AI, do you think that films should continue to use it, even though it will affect the way that people watch the films? Or do you think it can be used as a valuable tool for filmmakers and actors?
I think for sure it can be a valuable tool. I mean, I think I look at it as it's a tool and it's not something that should be heavily relied upon, because I do think overall, people are starting to rely on AI a little too heavily and people are starting to lose creativity and whatnot. But when you're using AI to help with scripting, to help find filming locations, casting places, I think that's where I can find use in it. And I mean, AI, if we look at Adrian Brody, I think it is helpful because it did kind of help him with the dialect and the accent. And there's a lot of people who have difficulty learning those things. So I do think there's advantages to AI in filmmaking for sure. And as well, I think it could make the translation of foreign films while still using the actor's voice, like that could make things a little bit easier. So there is definitely some advantages to it. I just think that it shouldn't be too heavily relied upon, because then we're going to just suck the creativity out of filmmaking. And I don't think that's the best play, but yeah, for sure there's some good sides to it, I think.
Thanks for joining us for the Relevance Report. This week's episode was produced by Brooke Mayer. The show was edited by Izzy Crozier. The show's supervising producer is Sheena Rossiter. Additional studio supervision by Sasha Stanojevic. This episode was produced as part of the BCSC 325 Radio News and Documentaries class in the winter 2025 semester. This course is part of the Bachelor of Communication Studies program in the Department of Communication at MacEwan University. The show is edited and produced out of the MacEwan Media Production Studio. Our theme music is called Buzzing by Kaylee Lambert. Logo design for this podcast is by Sasha Stanojevic. And I'm Kelsey Howlett, your host for this week's episode. This podcast was recorded on Treaty 6 territory, the traditional and ancestral territory of the Cree, Dene, Blackfoot, Saulteaux, and Nakota Sioux. We acknowledge that this territory is home to the Métis settlements and the Métis Nation of Alberta, Districts 9, 10, and 11 within the historical North Saskatchewan River Territory. Don't forget to subscribe to the Relevance Report on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. And if you like what you heard, please leave us a review and a rating. It really helps people find the show. Please join us again next week when we report the relevant stories that are shaping our world.